Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving headfirst into something deeply primal, and that is our absolute fascination with fear. I mean, why do we willingly put ourselves through terrifying stories? Well, to figure that out, we're going to deconstruct the actual anatomy of fear. We'll be looking at 5 chilling animated horror stories sourced directly from the super popular YouTube channel Thriller Teller. And by picking apart these narratives, we're going to uncover the exact psychological triggers that writers and animators use to basically bypass our logic and tap straight into our deepest, darkest anxieties. So let's kick things off with a total nightmare scenario. Mommy, there's a monster in my room and the monster looks exactly like you. Just let those words sink in for a second. This incredibly unsettling quote comes right from the Thriller Teller story Mother. Just imagine the sheer panic of a little kid suddenly realizing that her ultimate protector is actually the predator. It is the absolute perfect hook because it completely violates our most basic symbol of trust. And that really brings us to the core question of our whole analysis today. What actually makes a simple story keep us staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m.? It's really not just cheap jump scares or loud noises, right? It's a highly calculated attack on our psychology. Throughout this explainer, we're going to break down the exact fears these 5 stories exploit, giving you a solid analytical framework to understand exactly why your heart starts pounding the second the lights go out. All right, let's jump right into our first theme, corrupting our safe spaces, or turning comfort into a trap. So the most effective horror rarely happens in some random dark forest halfway across the world. No, it targets the very places we feel the most secure. Take the story Mother. We've got a young girl named Lisa who can't sleep, so her mom runs out to grab some milk. But pretty quickly, Lisa is forced to make a horrifying choice between the voice of her actual real mother, who's locked outside fumbling for her keys in the dark, and the monstrous entity that's already inside her bedroom, offering her a glass of honestly horrifyingly red milk. The terror here relies 100% on deception right inside our ultimate safe space. And we see this exact same violation of the home in the story Haunted House. Here, our main character Annie gets her whole sense of security completely shattered. Her new bedroom window perfectly frames this creepy abandoned house right next door. And when she keeps seeing this shadowy figure staring back at her from the empty top floor, what do her parents do? They totally dismiss it. They call it a Halloween prank or just an overactive imagination. Because, of course they do. This leaves Annie totally emotionally isolated. But the real physical corruption happens when she actually goes next door to confront the supposed prankster. The ultimate trap is sprung. The front door, the one she purposely left open, mysteriously jams shut, locking her right inside the nightmare. Suddenly, the home isn't a sanctuary at all. It's a cage. Moving right along to our second major theme, the terror of isolation, or being cut off from help. So psychologically speaking, the human brain actually processes extreme isolation pretty much the exact same way it processes physical pain. And that is precisely what the McDonald's horror story exploits. It starts with a 17-year-old kid working his very first night shift. At midnight, it's totally normal, right? He's sweeping, refilling the ketchup and barbecue sauce, standard stuff. But by 2 a.m., the restaurant is dead quiet, and that primal, creeping feeling of being watched starts to set in. At first, he just brushes it off as sleep deprivation. But then, the isolation escalates from just a creepy feeling to a fatal reality. A dark shape over the drive-thru window reveals itself to be a literal demon with blood-red eyes, violently banging on the glass and screaming, "I can see you!" The brilliance of the story is that stark contrast between a bright, familiar fast food joint and the absolute, terrifying vulnerability of being completely alone at 2 in the morning. Now, while a late-night fast food joint gives us urban isolation, the story Wrong Turn totally weaponizes geographical isolation. In this one, an adventurous girl named Jenna accepts a really bad dare to drive down Whispering Hollow Road. It's this incredibly desolate, moonless stretch of highway. The dense woods and winding path basically act like silent sentinels, physically cutting her off from the rest of civilization. I mean, there's zero cell service, absolutely no streetlights, and literally nowhere to run. And just as her anxiety is hitting its absolute peak, the dead silence is broken. A distorted, static-filled voice crackles to life over her previously dead car radio, and it just hisses, "I think I've just 1 more mile to go, then it'll be all over." The chilling irony of that message just seals Jenna's fate. It's essentially a countdown to her doom, right before her headlights sweep across a ghostly hitchhiker with completely hollow eyes standing dead in the middle of the road. Her isolation was the exact thing that made her the perfect target. All right, let's get into our third and final theme, lingering spirits and demons, and dealing with the uncanny unknown. So obviously, not all monsters operate on the same logic, but they do all invoke terror through their completely unnatural presence. Take a look at Agatha's ghost, for example. She's bound to the streets near Eden Hills School, and she's driven by this tragic, endless grief, constantly searching for her lost 10-year-old daughter who died back in 1998. But on the flip side, you've got the blood-eyed demon at McDonald's or the doppelganger in Lisa's bedroom, and they just operate on pure, unexplained malice. And here's the thing, it really doesn't matter if the motive is heartbreaking grief or just hellish intent. The true fear stems from the absolute wrongness of them even existing in our natural world. The story Walking Alone from School gives us a total masterclass in uncanny dread. We follow a student who stays late at the library until 10 p.m. While walking down an unusually empty street, they spot a woman. But instantly, you know something is deeply wrong. She's in tattered clothes, her hands and feet are violently twisted, and she's limping impossibly slow. Yet, terrifyingly, she's somehow catching up to the student in almost no time at all. It's literally a corruption of physics. And when the panicked student points her in the opposite direction, the entity walks way off into the distance, only to suddenly unleash this blood-curdling scream, "She is here." It's that unnatural movement and that totally broken reality that truly traumatizes the protagonist. Okay, let's quickly distill the rules of horror by looking at the fatal mistakes our protagonists make. We can kind of use these stories as a literal survival guide for ourselves. Step 1, pretty obvious, but never leave your locked, safe home to go investigate a dark, abandoned house alone. Step 2, don't drive down an infamous, haunted road in the pitch black just to satisfy a silly dare from your friends. And step 3, never, ever ignore that screaming gut feeling warning you not to approach a strange, limping figure in the middle of the night. In all of these thriller teller stories, it's just basic curiosity and a massive failure to respect boundaries that leads directly to the horror. Ultimately, these stories are great because they let us experience absolute worst-case scenarios right from the safety of our own screens. But, they also plant this tiny, enduring little seed of doubt. So I'll just leave you with this final thought. The next time you're all alone in the dark and you get that sudden, creeping feeling that someone or something is watching you, are you absolutely sure it's just your imagination?